let's start this thing off.
Your assets.
We can crack the wallet.
Oh, we've done before.
We've got rigs, character adversary, attribution mode
with our private keys combined.
Building some kind of blockchain super weapon.
There's just a number of vulnerabilities that are in the smart contracts.
Math. It's probably secure.
They all secretly mine cryptocurrency.
What coin can I trust? Which one is cryptographically secure?
Don't roll your own crypto.
CoinSec podcast. Welcome everyone to the CoinSec podcast, episode 38. It's only been a couple years since the
Took a break.
since episode 37. We're just picking right back up with episode 38, just coming right back in. Like nothing ever happened. Like we were never gone for a couple years there. So we have quite a list of hosts today. Let me welcome everybody. So I'm Bo Bullock. We've also got Steve. We've got Mike. We've got Ralph. We've got Corey. We've got John and Ryan on the back end running things for us. So welcome everyone. We're here to talk about the latest news and crypto hacks. So how's everyone doing? You guys doing good?
Well,
I'm
luckily,
excited.
I haven't been victim to any crypto hacks recently, so
Yeah.
I thought that crypto was supposed to be a dead technology, like like 9 months ago or something.
Yeah, I mean that's like a weekly thing, right? I mean, it dies and comes back, comes back.
Yeah. So.
Just like this podcast. Perfect.
Yep, exactly.
The CoinSec zombie podcast. It's like we just dug it back up. Oh, it's moving. Great. Let's go.
It's perfect. It's Friday the 13th, right? So I mean, you
it's going to work really well.
From the dead on Friday the 13th.
You know what's funny is that this actually the whole like crypto hacks that have been happening over the last 2 years since we've been gone, they haven't stopped. But it reminds me of ransomware. Like it's just getting more of it. Like we're just every day.
Rob, we're 2 minutes in and you've already mentioned ransomware.
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm a little bit disappointed.
Well, I got my bingo card here. Ransomware.
For everyone trying to fill up your bingo card, I got more.
No, ransomware is the gimme in the middle.
Yes.
So, oh my God. So no big news. It's weird. We started this, you started this whole thing back up on a week that's kind of a dead week for, cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
news.
super dead.
I mean, not a lot happening.
Nothing is happening at all. Nothing at all. Yeah, so I mean, we can jump right into it. Let's talk about the news, guys. What has been going on for the past week? Well, the big story and the one that I want to hear all of your opinions on is the Poly Network hack. So largest DeFi hack ever, $600 million stolen. It's a crazy story. Let me back up before we get too deep, because I want to mention if you want to follow along with the news articles, we have posted the show notes on coinsecpodcast.com. So if you go to coinsecpodcast.com and scroll down, you can see all of the links to all of the items that we talk about throughout the show. So guys, $600 million, like it's crazy because in the traditional hacking world, like I don't even remember the last time we saw a number even that close to being that big. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
Inside job.
Inside.
Ransomware wishes they could make that much.
Yeah. Right.
That's always where the brain goes first, right? Like it's got to be a rug pull, got to be an inside job. But I think based off of the analysis that has come out, that is not the case, that it actually was a vulnerability. I think some of the initial analysis was like, the only way that this money would have been stolen is if a valid keeper, which was an owner that controlled a key that could actually transmit the coins and the tokens out of that particular account, had to have been controlled by the Poly Network, right? That was one of the original analysis of that particular story. But as time has kind of gone on, it's actually turned out, and it appears to be that there was actually a vulnerability that was exploited.
yeah. And what's interesting about this is that it affected more than one chain, right, or more than one cryptocurrency kind of network. So Binance Smart Chain was affected, as well as Polygon and the Ethereum network as well. So it's quite a broad hack, I think.
Now,
Yeah,
I just got a question on that because, just so everybody knows, my role here is to be the person that knows nothing about this because this is all new to me as well. So what value do I bring? Well, I bring value because they bring hard-hitting questions like this. Why? Why was this attack able to hit those three things? Is it the way that the smart contract was written is that it could reach into those different chains? Like, what actually allows that type of attack to hit multiple chains in one shot? And then what language allows you to do that across multiple chains as well?
Yeah, so the Poly network, the whole idea there is that it's a bridge to multiple different chains. So like it allows you to make transactions across chains. And that's partly where the vulnerability manifested itself, is the fact that you could actually send a cross-chain transaction that made it so that your own key that you specified was the keeper of one of the main contracts that allowed for ultimately the stealing of the funds. But yeah, so the whole point of Poly Network was to assist in those cross-chain transactions.
And to follow that up too, like why would you want this? It's for simplicity, right? So just being able to work with multiple chains in one place it's attractive, because of some of the complications of, doing an ETH transaction versus doing, any other chain, right? Like it's just, you're moving between these two and, having one place. And so obviously there's some convenience factor, which is the why you would do this, right? So that's also why it was so much money too. Is because we're looking at a lot of chains and a lot of different, resources in those chains that they're pulling all together, and that's why it was so much money. So,
and they didn't even take all of them either. They left some of the smaller coins or
the crumbs. Yeah,
Yep.
No, I don't want those.
Yeah, and probably the craziest thing of this entire story is that he gave it back.
Right.
What a wild week it was for him, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
A billionaire.
Crazy.
I don't know. That would work. That would be really hard for me to be like $600 million. I don't know. Money ain't my thing, and just give it all back.
So there's a lot of things to kind of consider there, right? Like, all right. So first off, is he just really a white hat that just wants to, show off like, oh, hey, I can hack this and then give it back, or did somebody actually, catch him and he's scared that he's actually going to, have legit criminal charges taken, which I imagine that's still going to be pursued. But like initially, like on day one, whenever this happened, it was very easy to see that that actual wallet address of the attacker had actually funded his own account from an exchange. So from who.com exchange, which is a Chinese exchange. So it's very easy to trace that back and say, oh, let's go to that exchange and see exactly who this is. So I know that Slow Mist, a company, did a little bit of analysis around that, and I guess they talked to who.com and found out that they found like an email address, IP address, and like device fingerprints of the person, which he went on later on in comments to kind of say that a lot of that information was probably falsified and just throwaway accounts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one other thing I want to bring up too. Like everyone talks about how anonymous this is and how you could just steal. A lot of that is there is some ground here where like will you try to convert 600 million into something useful or try to buy things, and it does make this whole transaction history, especially when you're dealing with some of these bigger exchanges. I know Binance has been like one of the gatekeepers of some of those, and there's other ones too. Tether actually shut down all, like literally just locked out those coins so that they were like pretty much frozen in time so that he couldn't spend them, which I think is also an interesting way to run a cryptocurrency. I'm confused about, how free that crypto is if you can just lock it down when they feel like, it makes sense to them. So, but, getting this out or converting it to real dollars, or when I say real dollars, into another currency or something that you could spend is sometimes more difficult than it appears at first.
How would you say that
like
compares to
NFTs?
if somebody? How would you say that compares to if somebody was just dropped $600 million cash from a bank heist? It fell out of the back of the truck. Yeah, $600 million from a bank steal. How would you go about using that? I mean, I think it's kind of the same premise, right? Anything with that large amount of cash, you're going to earn funds. But I think what's cool about the blockchain is that we have the resources, because most of them are open source and you can see where this stuff goes. We have the resources to kind of at least track to some point, right, where it goes. So that does put some pressure on the criminals who are performing it.
You might be able to argue that cryptocurrency is easier to figure out what's going on than harder. But I mean, it just depends, right? Like, yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to show is as this attacker was kind of going throughout the process of communicating with Poly, they were doing it on the blockchain. And one of the things that I wanted to do is kind of be able to visibly see a lot of that. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick so I can show you this script I found. It's actually from a person by the name of Banteg on Twitter. I modified it slightly so that we could actually call out both the attacker's address as well as Poly Network's address. But what this script does is basically just goes to a specific block number and watches a single address and then pulls out any of the transaction data where they've added in specific text. So like you can see here, like this particular transaction, this is the attacker where they're literally doing a Q&A session on the blockchain.
Awesome.
Like, why hacking for fun? Why Poly Network? Cross-chain hacking is hot. Like, they're literally posting their entire almost like a blog of sorts, you know. And then what you'll see too is you'll see a lot of transactions come in where a bunch of random people are also just trying to like piggyback. So they're literally asking for money from this attacker. They're like, hey, so are you a hero? You want to send me some money? And then if you look here, I've highlighted the Poly Network addresses in green, so you can see like this is actually Poly talking to the attacker, where they say, we appreciate you returning of assets and the explanation of your motivation. We would like to work with you to resolve the current and future security issues of Poly Network. Please complete returning of assets as you promised, and let's move on. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, like, I can't say that there's a whole lot of cases that I've seen in recent history where it's like the hacker themselves is actually like talking publicly and doesn't have any fear around that. What are your thoughts on that?
Didn't the attacker in the DAO attack do something similar, kind of communicating to the public at large about motivations and why they did what they did, and talking about overall security implications of like smart contracts and things like that?
There's been a few of them, definitely in the blockchain space that have done it. I know the Thorchain was another one that happened a few weeks ago, where the attacker was also making comments within transactions, and it's super interesting because like I guess like the traceability of these, right? Like how would you find these people, right? Like how would you find somebody that has gone and just made a comment on the blockchain? I don't think you can.
Yeah. What's also interesting about this was Poly kind of opened up at the end of that to, hey, we would like to work with you on this and other vulnerabilities that may exist. So are they opening it up to, hey, you give us the money back, we'll give you a job or let you consult? Or are they going to try to throw the ban hammer on them and get them in prison?
I think the ban hammer would be a bad idea politically at this point.
Yeah.
I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to make it look like they're as open as possible to working with this individual, but in the background, they're going to shun him and basically not communicate with them very much at all. Because this is a very delicate kind of political situation for them. Because for the community at large, he's Robin Hood, right? Or she's Robin Hood. That's a big deal. But if you're at Poly, you're very pissed at this person at the exact same time. So you've got to try to balance that very, very, very carefully.
Yeah, I know I guess Poly offered them like $500,000 like as a bounty, and from what I can tell from the comments is that he didn't accept it, or they didn't accept it, and so where does that open up the door though, right? Like so, like let's say that a traditional bounty company or bounty created by a company is around like the 50 to maybe 100 grand mark. Some of them are starting to get higher and higher, but the dude stole $6 million and then got offered $500,000 as a bounty.
600 million, right? 600
million. Sorry, 600 million.
Yeah.
Stole $600 million and then got offered $500,000 as a bounty.
Now, did they offer that bounty after he was talking about giving it back?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's when it was.
Before that?
Yeah, I think it was after.
Yeah, you're right.
There was a bounty program before.
Like, how's about you give us back our 600 million and I give you this shiny 500,000 instead? Right. But if you're the person behind this, though, seriously, you've got to be terrified, right? Like that's a serious amount of cash. And in some of the bank attacks that I've seen, especially over in Southeast Asia that didn't quite make it into the news, a lot of those attacks don't make it into the news and they don't go to the police to deal with that situation and find the person behind it. So in a situation like this, if I was the person that pulled off that hack, you've got to definitely be terrified about your own personal safety, right? I mean, that's got to be a concern here. And by the way, I'm not just talking about from the perspective of the people that you stole the money from coming after you, but all of the organized crime people looking at you and saying, this is somebody that can steal money for us. We want this person in our basement chained to a computer.
The old black bag attack.
Well,
It's
the
black
other
bag in a van. So
the other piece too is that when he stole the money, right, there was a ton of people that probably were very upset because they had money in there, and they were upset at him, not just, you know, Polly for not securing it, blah blah blah. So like giving it back also kind of makes the goodwill and all the other pieces, right?
makes
But
the black
you know,
helicopters go away.
yeah, right. Like you're not really gonna probably come after him at this point. Like it's like there was a hack and there was money stolen and then given back. So I mean, I
So-
just borrowed it.
Right?
So this is the other thing, right? So this is the other thing along with that deal. So I'm reading, and again, like you have to take this as a grain of salt, because the hacker themselves posted a quote unquote decrypted message between Polly and them. So like in one of the transactions, they basically say like, in this encrypted transaction, this is the decrypted version of it from Polly. And they basically said, yes, you know, we're going to offer you $500,000 bug bounty, as well as we assure you that you will not be accountable for this incident. So they're basically saying that we'll pay you 500 grand and you're not going to have law enforcement come after you.
That's a good deal.
That's I like the not going to jail
Hey,
part.
dude.
500,000 this week. So I've got two questions on this though that I think are important. How common are cross-chain networks like Polly? Like how many are there roughly?
So there's a few different things that are similar, right? Like not necessarily cross chain, but cross
Even similar,
token,
right? Like
right?
because what I'm getting at is this vulnerability that this attacker took advantage of. Was this just an oopsies, or does it actually point to some like deeper systematic weakness that exists in this type of technology? Or
I think it's something that needs to be looked at for every single cross chain technology out there. Should be something you get. So the thing is like the smart contracts on either side, they basically had an implicit trust within their own chain, right? But the second you cross that boundary, one of the smart contracts on the other side had a way to basically it was looked at as like almost like an administrative ownership over the contract across the chain itself. So like within its own chain, like if you interacted with it directly, you wouldn't have had the ability to change what is known as a keeper, so an owner of that contract. But calling it a cross chain actually allowed the attacker to change the ownership over a single contract.
Oh, wow. So that definitely can be an issue that exists in multiple different contracts and multiple other companies like Polly then, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely possible. Yep.
We've seen very similar stuff with just smart contracts in general with some of the fallback functions early on where you could change the ownership. I think that was what plagued smart contracts when they first kind of came out. If you remember, like a lot of them were like just functions within the smart contract that gave you the ability to kind of update the owner address, and then you would just make that your contract address and kind of hijack ownership. So it seems like it's following the same fundamental problem, but just now introducing it to the new attack surface because it's kind of a cross chain.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know where it's gonna go, right? Like what? I mean, is the hacker just going to be just disappear at this point, and nobody ever knows what like are they going to be pursued? I guess that time will tell. We'll have to probably read about that in a few weeks. Hopefully, this guy got arrested.
This also gets to something that you and I were talking about. I think it was last week. We were having a conversation about it, where whenever we look at traditional security, right? If you're a vendor or if you're even a company, there's always this idea that's inherent in security, that's ingrained in us, that a vulnerability is discovered, we can simply patch that vulnerability. There may be damage associated with that vulnerability, but we'll just simply patch it, and then it just keeps going on. But what you were explaining to me, and I think that this highlights that, is this isn't something that, if the code sucks, we'll just patch it later. It's like, no, if there's one vulnerability, the actual consequence can be catastrophic. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that's quite as easy as just issuing a patch and then rolling with it. You've got to make sure that the stuff is as tight as you can right out of the gate.
It's even more than that too, because a lot of these contracts have time locks in it. So, and they do that on purpose. So they lock this code for a certain amount of time. And the reason they do that is to build trust, okay? To say that I'm not going to just change the code on you while you're using this product without there being some kind of time for other people to realize that, you know, maybe you're going to steal money from me or do something like that. So when these vulnerabilities come up, they even have a time lock. They have to wait, you know, 24 hours or whatever it may be before they can actually fix the code again. So, I mean, it's like, and then once the cat's out of the bag, everyone's abusing it, right? So, and everyone's trying to take their funds out, and it just becomes this kind of like scatter, you know, thing over a vulnerability that now is affecting people, and they can't even stop it. That, you know, you can't just change it right away. So, fun stuff.
That's what happens to shitcoins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of maximalists say that, hey, you know, you're putting your trust in something that isn't Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, because anyone can make one of these contracts.
Yeah, you mentioned, so like if something happens to the smart contract, you have to just like burn it, right, and start a new one, and then move everybody over to that new contract, depending on the layout of the smart contracts. Because usually it's more than just one contract, right? They interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So how much of that infrastructure that you took so much time to build do you have to recreate, right? And then by that time, you've lost trust of the users of the system. So.
Oh yeah, especially with all the copy pasta that's going on around. So I mean, just copy in. I could start up my own chain. I just did this, and then next thing you know, you've got 5 different, you know, smart contracts that are all vulnerable to something that somebody didn't realize, right? So,
and they're fully open source too, right? So you have
smart contracts. Everyone's just waiting. Yeah.
It's not like your traditional software where you actually have to reverse engineer it and try to understand where the vulnerabilities are at. This is like fully transparent. Everybody can see it. Everybody can, you know, decompile or decompile it back to the contract itself from the bytecode and just examine line by line. Yeah.
You would think too, like this like idea of being fully transparent and open, like, oh man, well, there should be no vulnerabilities. We should have caught them all right away, right? But that is not the case, obviously. And, you know, with so many people trying to, like, you know, start up some coin or some token overnight, I mean, it's just it's the speed of light here, trying to catch up to just the vulnerabilities that are there, keeping the code in line, and then people trying to just make $1 off of whatever it is. So, yeah.
John, you sent that article this morning that kind of highlights that same the same issue, where basically the whole concept of that article you sent me was that, you know, coins are going to get hacked, and there's going to be like a number of tokens out front of this, you know, this market that have issues, and they're going to die. And that's going to help make the overall ecosystem more secure in time. But like,
and I wonder if that's going to be the one of the key signs of longevity for any of these different coins or anything like that, is just, you know, how much of an emphasis do the people that utilize it actually put on security. So I don't know. It's really super interesting to me, like where this is going to be going over the next 5 years.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some of the smart contract audits. A lot of these new coins and companies that are starting are getting smart contract audits right out the gate. Some of them are basically your typical, what we would call, you know, vulnerability scans, and then you get a score. Some are actually in depth, but some of them have just a score rating, right? Doesn't tell you what's wrong, so the public doesn't know. And I think we saw one, Bo, didn't we see one recently that was just like so damning? It said basically like, don't use this coin.
And
yeah, there was a wallet that I sent you a link to, or there's an audit report about a wallet, and it's funny because like a lot of the companies decide to, you know, post their audit reports whenever they're done, because that, you know, gives their customers a better sense of security, right, of whatever product, whether it be a wallet or a token or whatever coin. So it's very common to post these things publicly. The thing is like, you would think that if you're going to post an audit report, that it would have, you know, just completely clean report, right? Like it wouldn't have these glaring vulnerabilities. Like in this one specific wallet that I saw the other day, basically one of the vulnerabilities was you could bypass password authentication on the wallet. It's like, what? And on top of that, you could extract a clear text password out of the wallet if somebody's already signed into it. So like stuff like that, it's like, why are you posting this?
Put that into context of what we do in InfoSec, right? Would our client take their report that we give them and hold it out into the public and say, look at all of our vulnerabilities
Right.
we have? Or are they going to say, hey, we've been audited by this company and
Hey,
we've
Steve,
remediated whatever vulnerabilities, right?
I've just got to say, it'd be a lot cooler if they did. I mean, no, but seriously, okay. So let's take that logic through. If organizations had to have their security audit like shared publicly, I guarantee you they'd put a lot more time, effort, and money into
Oh,
Sure.
it's kind of like I'm getting jaded in the world of security. Whenever I talk about companies that have 7-character passwords, Mike knows who that is. And you're fighting all these companies. I used to get really angry, and now I'm just like, you know what? It's okay. The hackers are going to show you the error of your ways, and that's what I kind of like about the model about what's going on with coins and everything is, if you get an audit, it's shared publicly, and I think honestly, in the long run, that's going to be a better model for this industry.
Accountability.
yeah, and
like radical public accountability right out of the gate.
they do that too because they want to drive trust. It's the only way that they can get that trust they don't have, right? And that's why it's out there. And I mean, is it better for everyone? Yeah, it is better for everyone. But that's their driving motivation, right? Like if I put that out there publicly, then you'll come look at my chain or come look at my token or whatever it may be. Whereas other companies are like, well, we don't really need to tell you this to get you to buy our toys, right? So.
Yeah. And when you're looking at like a valid coin, you're looking at the team behind that coin too, right? You're looking at the technology, but you're also looking at, look at their GitHub. How often are they doing, commits and you're seeing the activity behind it. It builds that trust because now there's not just like a handful of people. It's a community behind it. It easily drags you in for trust. So I think it's a valid way for sure.
Very cool. Well, gents, I got to step out. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next one.
See you.
All right, you guys want to move on to the next story?
Yeah, Popsicle.
Yeah, let's talk about Popsicle. So another hack this week. Popsicle Finance hacked for 25 million. So this one was another smart contract issue, and we've got, I guess, 3 of them this week, right? 3 different smart contract issues that resulted in a lot of money being stolen. So this particular issue, let's see, a total of actually 20.7 million worth of funds were lost in the incident. Popsicle Finance has completed a postmortem, and the hackers were able to alter the Sorbetto Fragola transactions, where the contract was sent information about when and how much each user had deposited. As a result, the hacker was able to convince the Sorbetto pool that he had paid as many fees as the total TVL of the pool, and was thus able to win the whole 20.7 million from the pool.
It's funny because I actually have some Popsicle finance stuff, and I'm like in their Discord and stuff, and I actually watch this kind of like live unfold, and I'm like, oh crap, like going to check my stuff, So I don't know. Once you get into DeFi, you're just like, I mean, the risk is high for this kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I think I was trying to find if there was any more information around what exactly the issue was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, either way, bad issue. Money was stolen. I don't know if this guy's going to be doing the same thing that the Poly hacker did and actually give it back or not. But
yeah, I've seen a lot of these too. What'll end up happening is that do you know what chain this was on? I think they have it on multiple. So do you know what this one affected?
I'm this was sure. Ethereum, I believe.
This was on the ETH chain.
Yeah, looking at the smart contract now.
I know that a bunch that have happened on Binance, they go to Binance and like, hey guys, can you stop it? Because that's really kind of the only way to get the Binance out for the most part, right? Unless you go through like some kind of exchange piece. So they'll try to stop it that way, or hope that they can stop it that way. But a lot of these hacks, they're gone, and it's. I want to say easy money. I mean, I don't know. Like, analyzing these contracts is not necessarily rudimentary, right? Like it's hard enough just finding people to do it. So, but most people in these hacks are finding that it's very profitable to just go ahead and take the money. So,
well, yeah, I mean, same thing with the next one. I mean, I think like it is basically like 7 lines of code that were an issue. So the next one was the DAO maker hacked for 7 million. Let's pull that one up real quick. So yeah, if you go to the DAO maker. So this is another smart contract issue that just happened. 7 million for 7 lines of code.
Yeah, and what's interesting is if you look at Popsicle Finance's price during the hack and after the hack, it crashed pretty bad.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem to have affected DAO maker very much at all. There was an initial crash, but it's well above that already.
Wow.
That's kind of interesting, right? Like I think the same thing with Poly. Like you didn't see a whole lot of changes in Matic at all.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost relative to the InfoSec industry where you get hacked and then you get a whole bunch of press and your stock price goes up, right?
Yeah.
Bad,
Well, so
good press, I guess.
It's wild though, because think about this, like there are people who are like already taking risky investments in some of these and they see this as an opportunity to get in while it's even cheaper, right? Or come back,
Yeah.
right? And then in the case of Poly, right? I mean, what, you picked them up real cheap and then they got all the money back. So now like, you know, immediately back up. I mean, so there's opportunity, and that's why sometimes the price doesn't fluctuate like you would think it would, right? But it just depends on who's behind the project. So
Yeah, the smaller, we saw a lot on the Binance Smart Chain, the smaller projects would just fizzle out and go away unless, I think, like what Mike was saying about having the staffing and the backing and stuff like that, right?
yeah, that really is what it comes down to. Because I mean, people are already just taking risk on this like thing. It's all about potential bets, not like, oh, well, we've got so much code written or whatever. It's all just like, you know, kind of, hey, this could be great. Hey, we're going to do this, right? And where it makes it, we'll see.
Yeah, Popsicle's ice is already stable. I mean, it's not back to where it was. It was up in between $2 and $2.50, and then it dropped to $1, but it's already heading back up to like 130, 128.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we see on the screen now the analysis of the DAO maker, and what's cool about kind of solidity and the open sourceness of the blockchain is that you can go in and you can actually read like the attacker's smart contract, like we're looking at now. So we can see the exploit code. Where in our industry, in InfoSec, you may not see that from the attacker's point of view, right?
Yep, absolutely. That and also the conversations that they end up posting on the blockchain. You're right. You know, like Ralph, you mentioned like sometimes you have more visibility, right? With looking at actual blockchain related attacks these days, because you can see the attacker's code, you can see the transactions that were sent, you can see the wallets that were used, you can see where those wallets are going. If they decide to write their own blog in blockchain transactions, you can see that too. It's like there's a lot of things to analyze, you know, compared to a traditional attack.
Yeah, I wonder if you look at some of these smart contracts that are used as exploits and start trying to fingerprint some of the naming conventions and just the style of writing to see if you can identify, you know, cross-transaction the hacks.
Yeah. And then the last thing that always comes up on any of these big attacks is like, was it an inside job, right? That's always like the first thing that people, you know, point to, like, hey, was this intended? You know, were they waiting for it to grow and have a bunch of money in there before they initiated something? You know, for a lot of these projects, I would say that's probably not the case, especially the bigger ones. But, you know, it's always like that back thought, right? This was all part of the plan. So,
yeah, sort of the type of attack, right? If it's
yeah.
modifying, you know, permissions and things like that, it looks a little more sketchy than if it's just like a flash loan attack, you know, somebody's draining funds. And
yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do this. And some of these are really common now, like some of these vulnerabilities inside of the smart contract. They're like common known vulnerabilities that people can sniff out, and they've automated some of this stuff, right? So if you were to like plan it out, right, plan out something to steal, like it's getting harder to make it look like it wasn't you know, in there on purpose. That's what I'm trying to say.
So what you're saying is that companies should be actually scanning their own stuff and finding these issues before. Before they go live.
And I mean,
because if they leave it, it's like kind of like a negligence thing, right? Like if you leave, you know, reentrancy vulnerability in your smart contract and go live with it, you know, people will find that like that. Actually, I'm pretty sure there's automated scanners already doing that and exploiting things.
Looking at one right now online that's how to steal ether, scanning for vulnerable contracts.
So what's funny though, so here's the thing, right? So there's also there's also like honeypot or honey token smart contracts out there that will look like they're vulnerable to things like reentrancy, and then you go to exploit it, but it actually steals whatever ETH you decided to use for that attack. Seriously, so like if you are thinking about automating, going and attacking smart contracts, just know that there's some out there that are straight up honeypot smart contracts that will just steal whatever you try to use to transact. Like, because a lot of times, like for things like reentrancy, you need gas fees, right? You have to pay the gas fees to even execute the attack. So it will just drain all of the ETH that you used for those gas fees, or that you were planning on using for gas fees.
Sometimes when there's blood in the water, people are hunting for sharks. Okay, so I mean, just think about that.
Yep.
That's funny though. That's funny. I heard another thing. This was slightly unrelated to CoinSec, but our cryptocurrency. But it was these scammers that come up where people post like, "Hey, I lost my password" or something like that. Can you help me get into my account? Which usually equates to like I'm trying to do something like break into someone else's account. But it's just scammers, excuse me, coming along, doing the same thing. And this is that, right? Looking when you're out doing something illegal, like trying to hack into or trying to steal money from these contracts, right? There's going to be people out there who are like, "Oh, well, what if I get you to come to me and pay some money in a way you didn't intend?" Which, I guess it's a profitable way to, steal money for people who are trying to steal money. Wow. Oh man, so much fun.
All right, so let's move on to the last story for today, which is the infrastructure bill in crypto. This one, this has been huge news, right? I mean, this is a massive undertaking of people trying to figure out what's actually going to happen with crypto language in the infrastructure bill. And basically the gist of it is that the current language that has been added to the infrastructure bill is very overarching and very broad, and makes it so that organizations like exchanges and mining companies would have to actually like operate as a broker, which means that they would have to like use 1099s for each of their customers. And there's been a few different governors or senators that have actually collected together. They tried to change that language, but it's already passed the current vote, and I think it's off to I believe the House at this point, or the Senate.
Well, the amendment was struck down, so they did not include the updated versioning that the senators had, the bipartisan deal that came through. So unfortunately, the bad things that are going to happen from this bill are currently in place. So we know how hard it is to change something from the government that goes into place. It's basically impossible once something gets funded.
Mm-hmm. And I think the amendment wasn't even like, it would have helped some, but I believe it only excluded like proof of work miners, correct?
So it would have been more beneficial for the way it is written now, it is more beneficial for proof of work crypto, I think, because we're mainly focusing on brokerage exchanges. And I think those smart contract pools and things like that are affected by it as well.
It's kind of brutal. A bunch of people debating about a technology they don't understand and whether that they should affect it in a way that they don't understand. It's a bunch. It's wild, but just the whole idea that a bunch of people who have really no grasp or concept is trying to make a rule or a law around it. It's just, that's not how you should do it, right? Whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant. I'm just saying a bunch of people making the decision that don't have any level of like information there besides, what do you call it? Lobbyists? Like, come on. So.
Sure, I see it in that way, but I also see it a little bit in the way that at least they're starting to try and they're putting these things into place, which means that they're legitimizing the crypto industry. They're starting to do it, so that's bringing some legitimacy to the cryptocurrency, the whole market and everything. So I think it's somewhat of a good idea, somewhat of a good plan that they're actually going forward with some of this stuff. I think it brings credence to the fact that we're trying to change the way money works, right, and improve it. Not just they didn't just come out and wholeheartedly ban it. So I think that's a positive that can come from this.
So apparently the vote for the overall infrastructure bill is set to commence on Tuesday. And it says even if it passes, there will still be continued opportunities to alter any provisions, including the one on the crypto tax, before it's signed into law. So there's still some time. I guess this will be something we'll probably end up talking about next week and see where it went. But yeah, for now, that is the status.
I think the challenge is going to be on the broker part. I think that is probably a fair argument, right? Because I mean, I'm looking at this letter right now that got sent to Nancy Pelosi, and it's talking about the legislation and the definition of broker and how it's going to impact miners, right? Because I mean, if you have the majority of, not saying, let's not say the majority, but if there's a proof of work, all of those miners will be responsible for having to abide by those reporting requirements. First, I don't think it would happen, right? Unless there was, I don't think people would report it. I know I wouldn't report it if I was doing mining. I wouldn't. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of generating your own.
That affects mining pools as well, right?
Yeah, across the board.
That's the big one that it affects is mining pools.
Yeah, so even people running those mining pools are going to have to report, I think, the transactions that are being made from the people who are mining to and from the pool. So it's pretty going to be pretty.
Actually, you know what? That's actually an interesting point. And this also only affects the United States. So with the majority of the pools for like Bitcoin being in China, this wouldn't even affect them. It's actually it would probably be a good move for China if this type of regulations came here, because it would kind of suck out any of the United States competition as it relates to mining.
Well, I think part of the problem is the fact that mining is already moving to the U.S. because of China's ban. So now they got tagged over there. They're moving over here. Now we're going to tax the crap out of them, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. All right. So I think we got one more thing on the list here. Steve, did you want to talk about bug bounties some?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring it up. If we want to pull up that Notion page and kind of just show some of those links. So I did a little bit of research this weekend into kind of how you can get started with bug bounties. And there's a few, we see all these hackers hacking and stuff like that. Well, how can you go hack on a contract and not get, arrested? Basically, if you stay within the lines of these bug bounty programs, you can submit and possibly get paid for the work that you do. So just like in the information security industry, where we are paid to go, say, find a vulnerability in a website, the same exists for a lot of the smart contracts and exchanges and things like that are out there. So we've got some links here if you want to get started in, or if you're interested in hacking and looking into cryptocurrency and things like that. Go check out some of these links. Yeah,
and the cool thing about like the ecosystem around a lot of the various, not only just smart contracts, but like DeFi networks and companies that are doing these kind of bug bounties, is that they have a lot of moving pieces. So you're not just looking at smart contracts. You're also looking at the front end website. You're looking at APIs for communicating with them. You're looking at the wallets. Like there's bug bounties for all of this stuff, right? So it's a really big open world right now. Obviously, like lots of 3 hacks this week, right?
Yeah.
Millions of dollars stolen. So the one of the links that I posted in there is that so Graph Protocol have literally made history by making a $2.5 million bug bounty. Like that is the highest bug bounty I guess has ever been set for helping secure their protocol. So definitely an interesting world if you're interested in the bug bounty side of things.
There's definitely bugs out there too. There's plenty of bugs in those waters. How easy it is to discover them is, the question, but they're there, and either you're going to get paid or someone's going to steal it. So I guess that's the idea.
Yep. Cool. So I think that pretty much wraps it up, guys. Do you have anything else you want to add before we kind of close off here?
No, I think we're good.
All right.
Glad to be back.
Yes.
To be back, right? Let's keep it going. Let's see how many we can go here, right?
Yep, we'll be back next week. Thank you all so much for watching CoinSec Podcast. Subscribe on YouTube and go follow us on Twitter. And we'll catch you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
See ya.